Hello everybody, Adrian Plass here.
Yes, and Bridget, hello.
And it's really nice to be back with you. And thank you for, messages of all the messages we've had, and just recently some lovely messages from people. Thank you so much. And we've been thinking, we're sitting in the shed at the bottom of our garden, which is more my study, isn't it?
It is.
Yes,
I don't want to be thinking among the mower and the
No, we're not among the tools. There's Bridget here and the dog here.
Yes.
And a desk, and this is where I hopefully will continue to write. But anyway, so if you hear some scratching and strange noises, it's probably Bridget. I mean the dog. Sorry. There's still a prevailing wind, I think we could say, couldn't we, over our journey through the shallows.
Well, it's just shooting everything off the news the whole time, isn't it? I mean, one thing's there and then something else.
That's right. Well, we've had Afghanistan and that's still going, although it's not in the news as much.
Absolutely.
What's the thing about carbon dioxide, shortage of carbon dioxide?
Well, actually, it's a bit extreme, really, because on the superficial level, they can't make fizzy drinks because it's not arriving because of problems with delivery.
Yeah.
And actually the making of carbon dioxide, and a really serious side of that is that they can't stun animals. I'm really sorry, but it's horrible before, in the abattoirs. So animals are piling up apparently on the farm. So it's another big crisis that doesn't affect us directly, but it's there. Yeah.
So our son-in-law works in that area, doesn't he? The dispersal of carbon dioxide. We're just about beginning to sort of understand that. And then there's the petrol.
I know. I mean, that's loomed up out of nowhere, hasn't it? Really?
Yes, it has.
And I mean that affects so many people, and of course it's affected us quite severely, hasn't it? Because we've done 2 long journeys, and they were very necessary. One was to take our sister-in-law back home, and then carry on to meet a couple of people that we really needed to meet and wanted to meet at various important points in their lives.
And that was really good, wasn't it? Really lovely.
Yes, it was, but it meant we needed petrol.
Yes, it did. In fact, we filled the tank. There was a man on television this morning called Phil McCann. Phil McCann, wasn't it? Phil McCann, a reporter. We were in Eastbourne. We emptied our tank almost, still a little bit. And there was such a furore about petrol, we thought, what's going to happen? So we went to Tesco, didn't we?
Yeah.
And Bridget, very wisely...
No, it wasn't wise.
No, it was a mistake. She went in the wrong way. So we came right across the forecourt, and we entered the place where the petrol pumps were, actually very near the front of this immense queue.
Yes.
And... I think that there must have been a couple of work experience angels around, because somebody in the queue actually let us go in front, didn't they?
But we hadn't realised just how awful the queue was
until we
coming
got out. But the joy with which I watched those numbers rolling around on the pump, and we did manage to fill our tank, and we did get back.
So we did get home. But interestingly, I was listening to somebody, Adrian, it was on TV today, talking about the problem partly being fear of not being able to control the situation. And it's a very real fear if you can't get to work or you can't get... But when you get that petrol, suddenly you're in your car and you're sort of in control. I thought that was really interesting, because we were talking last week, weren't we, about guidance and about the fact that we want somebody to be in control. We want some certainty, which is why we so desperately need to hear that God is involved with our lives and is actually guiding us and sorting us out.
I think that's a really interesting observation, really. Certainly about, we don't know about other faiths, but certainly Christians, many Christians needing that feeling that they will get to the petrol tank, using it as a metaphor, a petrol pump, using it as a metaphor, where God will top them up and make it all right. But I'm sorry, I had to drag the dog back then from the door. I should try and get out.
We have had a couple of emails about, because we were talking about... Sorry.
The fact is, sometimes you have to admit to being a loony, don't you? I'm sorry, that's shorthand. But one of the things I've noticed about when we run out of petrol is that I actually really enjoy the last bit before we find it, and then when we get to the pump, there's a odd little bit of disappointment to me. It's like watching a film, which is really exciting, and then it ends, and suddenly everything's resolved, and you don't have to worry anymore. And I'm a bit worried about that. Do you think I'm going very mad?
I think you might get a lot of emails from people who didn't get any petrol and who think that your feelings about this are a bit superfluous, really.
But there is a serious point in the middle of all that, which is the fear that what we're really wanting from God is just to make things safe in the worldly sense, and that surely he should be doing
to know what to do. And I mean, the outcry at the moment about the government, we want to know what to do, and why aren't they telling us what to do? Oh, I was just going to say, we did have an email from somebody. Well, actually, it was somebody talking about her husband and guidance. Do you remember?
Well, I hope he doesn't mind us retelling the story.
Well, you're not going to give his name.
I know, I don't. No, we won't. His name's George. No, it's not. No, he was hoping to get a job at a Christian centre, a long way away from anywhere, really. And he set off the first time for an interview. Got
really
an interview.
Sure that God was guiding him there.
Yeah, I don't know how sure he was. I think he was. And he got a speeding ticket. So he kind of reverted then, perhaps thinking he was. But he went a second time.
He did.
Another interview. And he got another speeding ticket. What you do with that, I'm not quite sure. But he decided to give up at that point.
I think he decided God wasn't in it, and his wife decided that maybe he wasn't in it. I don't know. But then another email of somebody just saying so gently, I guess we sometimes decide what we want God's plan for us to be rather than trusting him. And I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the fact that, we do dwell on that line about God's plan for us being really for our benefit, really for us, for us almost getting what we want. And I was reading something just a couple of days ago that I haven't come across because we're very behind, aren't we, over things like TikTok, and apparently this has got a lot to do with TikTok, but it's something called manifesting. And it's to do with...
Doesn't sound very nice to me.
Well, I don't think it is very nice, actually, but it's very popular at the moment among young people.
Yeah.
And apparently what you do is you manifest what you want. So you manifest you want to do well in exams, and then you say it to yourself lots and lots. You believe it, and then you are going to do well in exams. Well, I found it quite frightening, and certainly one or two psychologists writing about it are finding it extremely worrying. But I'm afraid it also reminded me a bit of the sort of health and wealth thing.
It reminds me of a film of Christian speakers in white suits and people being conned into behaving in a certain way or paying money in order to get what they want from God, which I think is utterly horrible. No, I don't like it, and I don't like the word. I don't like the word manifesting. It did remind me, though, I have to say, of when I was a child and I manifested in order to get a book I wanted from my parents.
Oh, yes, you did.
You
really did.
I just said, river adventure, river adventure, river adventure. And they went through hating me, bribing me, all sorts of things. And in the end, they bought me River of Adventure. So I don't know if I was manifesting, but I got it.
No, I don't know, darling. Hopefully you grew out of that. The idea that there seems to be that people aren't supposed to grow out of it, that actually they're supposed to get better at it, and if they get better at it, they will get what they want, which again worries me, because sometimes you do feel that people feel if they do all the right things and say all the right things to God and work on it really hard, then they will get the answer to their dreams, as opposed to the opposite of that, of finding out what God's plan is that he would like us to join in, which is a bit the other way round, really.
And sometimes that's quite elusive as well.
Yeah.
So there are no easy answers there, are there? But it reminds me a bit of what they used to call cosmic ordering.
Okay.
Where you put your order into the cosmos for what you want.
I mean, what is strange is that we've just been down to the place, to where we used to live, And that was where we had our one very clear bit of
yeah, it's interesting,
of seeming to
yeah.
think we were hearing from God, and certainly continuing to feel that we had got it right.
It's very difficult to describe these things. When we were in Sussex in 2008 or something, and we heard that Scargill House in Yorkshire had closed down and was possibly going to reopen. And I don't know how Bridget would describe it, but from that time, I'm trying to actually say what it was. There was an awareness in me that I was going to Scargill. It wasn't a flash of light. It wasn't a voice in my head. It was just something that kind of filled me up, and that's what we did in the end. Yeah.
And it was clear, wasn't it?
Yeah, but it was clear, and some people ask a lot about this, ask us quite a bit about this kind of thing, and I know some people say they have very definite messages from God, and I'm not saying they don't, but the couple of times I felt sure are because I feel sure, not because of something. Well, that's true. There'll be one or two where something's happened, but yeah, it's like having a knowledge in you that you can't actually trace to its origin. Perhaps, I don't know. It's difficult, isn't it? Yeah.
It was certainly interesting being back there. I mean, as I know, lots of people who go back to where they used to live will know that, you were saying, Adrian, that because we're not really moving forward very much at the moment, memories are coming kind of crashing up behind us. Yeah. Well, certainly this was just these 2 days in which we met hardly anybody, just these 2 people we'd gone to see.
There were lots of people we'd loved to have seen.
Yeah, there were. Yeah. But there were some memories, and I was interested in the ones that did pop up. And one of them was it was just so odd. I was driving past a small recreation ground.
This was the memory. Yeah.
Well, that wasn't the memory. I was driving.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah.
I was driving past this small recreation ground where there were some swings and various things, and suddenly I had this wonderful memory, and it doesn't sound much, but I was driving home. I think you were with us, with Joe and David, our sons, in the back of the car. And there was, on that recreation ground, a penalty shootout competition, and having 2 sons who were incredibly keen on football. It was the most exciting thing for them that we were able to stop the car, and they shot off and they put their names down and did extremely well in this penalty shootout. And I thought, of all the memories, isn't it interesting how some just kind of pop up into you? And I was remembering all that excitement, that moment of something other happening, an adventure, if you like, on the way home.
I think it was just near there too that the dog was sick in my lap.
No, that's another time.
First,
oh dear.
First had the dog.
Well, how to ruin a beautiful memory.
Yes, I'm sorry about that. But one of the other things, which is a little more beautiful perhaps, is we used to take them up on the downs, the hills.
Yes, the South Downs, aren't they? Just near there.
And I wrote something about that then, which I'll read to you. It's just called The Downs. And yet Bridget's right, it was a pungent time being back there. Every road had a memory, Anyway, this was the Downs. Why do I love the Downs? Because they crunch and rattle beneath us as we walk. Brittle bones of flint and yielding flesh of chalk. Because the sun's unpanicked here and free, dawdles on a hilltop, skips around a bit, paints a dream of heaven, gossips kindly with a stunted tree. Why do I love the Downs? Because they prove that valleys can't climb hills, that spirit sometimes rests when body wills. They've never let us down, the Downs. They raise our kites, they raise our children higher, better than we ever could, down here in temporary television towns.
Yeah. I think there's something that many parents of children will understand, that you get them away from all the things. I know nowadays it would be screens, then it was most likely to be TV or football, but you get them up on the hills and suddenly all those things disappear and there's something so clean and so good. I love that line, Adrian, I always have, about raising our children.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about raising our kites. I don't remember us ever being very successful with our kites up on the
we
hills.
were sometimes. It was lovely trying.
It was
even
always
when we
wonderful.
Didn't work.
Yeah. I'll tell you what, though, this time when we went up on the hills, I was struck again by the fact, you said it in that poem, something about the stunted trees. And we're back to these prevailing winds. I mean, the trees all lean in one direction. All point the
same way, yeah.
Because the wind has created and shaped them as they were growing from saplings.
Right, yeah.
And I suppose if we're back to this idea of guidance and of being part of what God would like, that's kind of part of it, really, to be part of the shaping, the prevailing wind, if you like, on people's lives. Is that silly?
Well, no, I remember working with kids in care, and quite often the prevailing wind was not a good one.
No.
And the effect it had on kids as they went through the care system could be quite damaging. We always talked about some of them going through phases called sad, mad and bad, where when they're little you feel sorry for them. When they get a bit older, you reckon there's something wrong with their minds and their spirits, and then finally they do something conveniently bad and they perhaps go away somewhere. And that movement is a terrible one. And breaking into that certainly was like fighting a prevailing wind. But I've always obviously hoped that we and God and we, whichever way you want to put it, are always looking for the chink, the gap, the little place where we can change direction for us and for other people.
Oh, we've always loved those words, haven't we? God is not willing that any should be lost.
Absolutely.
And obviously that's to do with bringing people home to Him. But I think it's something that spurred us, working with children who've had all sorts of problems and trying to be part of a shaping. Apart from anything else, Adrian, just teaching them stories that we won't have heard at school, And I know that there were some amazing things that happened in your secure unit where you were able to bring out some creativity but it's hard work getting in there, isn't it, really?
Well, it also, in the church as well, not just in there, but it takes a little bit of courage and a little bit of arrogance, perhaps. The prophets were a bit like this, weren't they? To say, I'm not going to do the thing we do, I'm going to do the thing that is right, or that will make a difference. And you get it wrong. If you don't have a go, you'll never know.
But we are following Jesus, or trying to. And I mean, he was continually shocking people or confusing people because he was looking for that chink, wasn't he? And the children's story about Zacchaeus being up in the tree. Well, you may not know it because you don't like action songs, but I have sung this song with many, many, many children about Zacchaeus being a very little man. The very little man was he, and climbing up into the sycamore tree. But the final word of that is Jesus saying, Zacchaeus, come down. I remember singing it as I'm coming to your house for tea. Right. And I think actually the official words are coming to your house today. But the very right thing. Nobody will have wanted to eat with Zacchaeus. And publicly for Jesus to say, today it's all right. Yeah. You're special. I'm coming to your house.
Calling up to the top of the trees, so he'd have been shouting, wouldn't he?
Yes, absolutely.
The
so other people would have heard. Yeah, and it's finding that it was probably the one best thing, really.
Yeah. I remember years ago, I never met my grandfather on my mother's side. John Baker, his name was. And I often wondered what he was like. And I had his Bible, which he used as a Christian speaker sometimes. He was a builder, actually.
What was he, a local
It was I can't remember what his denomination was. Yeah, I think so. And I was idly turning it over. In the back of the Bible were the words of the song "Turn Your Eyes Upon Jesus," which was always one of my favourite songs, and he'd written them on the back page. And I kind of met him in a funny sort of way. I read it and I thought, you took a pen in your hand and you wrote these words, and you didn't realise that you and I were going to meet here and we were going to say, this is the way to go.
And they are extraordinary words, aren't they? Turn your eyes upon Jesus, look full in his wonderful face, and things of earth will seem strangely dim in the light of his glory and grace. And, you know, we talked about the Downs, being up on the Downs. You know, that's a very tiny example maybe of what happens when you turn away from all the things that have causing you problems.
Yeah, it's not always simple. It's not always direct. But in the end, the love in it all, I think, is a winner in the end.
Just finish with reading that bit from that email, look, that we had.
Oh, yeah, okay, I'll read this. I can't remember who it is. This person said, I guess that God's overall plan is to draw us closer to himself, but he doesn't compel us, he just beckons to us and watches the convoluted routes that we sometimes choose to take. But he's there beside us and ahead of us, never letting us get totally lost. Sometimes I do feel a bit totally lost, to be honest, but
but that's something worth hanging on to, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I wonder what crisis we'll be in next week, but we'll see you then.
I don't know. Maybe they'll run out of trousers. I don't know, do I? We'll see you next week.
I hope that's not a prophecy. Bye-bye.